The breaking point. The crystal chandeliers of the Riverside Grand Ballroom cast glittering light across Seattle's medical elite, but Sophie Mitchell barely noticed. She stood near the catering table in her paramedic uniform, trying to remain invisible while her vision swam with exhaustion. 18 hours. She'd been awake and working for 18 straight hours, and her shift wasn't supposed to end for another 4. "Excuse me, are you with the catering staff?" A woman in a designer gown looked at Sophie with polite confusion. "No, ma'am, I'm a paramedic. We're required to have medical personnel at events of this size." Sophie forced a professional smile, though her face felt like it might crack from the effort. The woman nodded and drifted away, rejoining the crowd of doctors, surgeons, and hospital administrators who'd paid $5,000 per plate to attend Stone Medical Center's annual charity gala. Sophie had volunteered for this assignment because it paid time and a half, and she desperately needed every extra dollar she could earn. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her 15-year-old sister, Riley. "Brandon ate the last of the cereal. There's nothing for breakfast tomorrow. Can you pick something up?" Sophie closed her eyes and took a steadying breath. She'd already worked her regular paramedic shift from 6 that morning until 2 in the afternoon, then rushed to her second job, restocking shelves at a medical supply warehouse from 3 to 7, before racing here to work security medical coverage until midnight. Tomorrow she'd do it all again, because that's what you did when you became guardian to teenage twins after your grandmother died and left you as their only family. "You look like you're about to pass out." The voice was male, deep, and came from directly beside her. Sophie's eyes snapped open to find a man studying her with clinical assessment. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that had distinguished silver threading through it at the temples. His tuxedo fit him with the kind of precision that spoke of custom tailoring, and his green eyes were sharp and intelligent. She recognized him immediately from the program, Dr. Gabriel Stone, owner and founder of Stone Medical Center, one of the most prestigious hospitals on the West Coast. "Excuse me, are you with the catering staff?" A woman in a designer gown looked at Sophie with polite confusion. "No, ma'am, I'm a paramedic. We're required to have medical personnel at events of this size." Sophie forced a professional smile, though her face felt like it might crack from the effort. The woman nodded and drifted away, rejoining the crowd of doctors, surgeons, and hospital administrators who'd paid $5,000 per plate to attend Stone Medical Center's annual charity gala. Sophie had volunteered for this assignment because it paid time and a half, and she desperately needed every extra dollar she could earn. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her 15-year-old sister, Riley. "Brandon ate the last of the cereal. There's nothing for breakfast tomorrow. Can you pick something up?" Sophie closed her eyes and took a steadying breath. She'd already worked her regular paramedic shift from 6 that morning until 2 in the afternoon, then rushed to her second job, restocking shelves at a medical supply warehouse from 3 to 7, before racing here to work security medical coverage until midnight. Tomorrow she'd do it all again, because that's what you did when you became guardian to teenage twins after your grandmother died and left you as their only family. "You look like you're about to pass out." The voice was male, deep, and came from directly beside her. Sophie's eyes snapped open to find a man studying her with clinical assessment. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that had distinguished silver threading through it at the temples. His tuxedo fit him with the kind of precision that spoke of custom tailoring, and his green eyes were sharp and intelligent. She recognized him immediately from the program, Dr. Gabriel Stone, owner and founder of Stone Medical Center, one of the most prestigious hospitals on the West Coast. "Excuse me, are you with the catering staff?" A woman in a designer gown looked at Sophie with polite confusion. "No, ma'am, I'm a paramedic. We're required to have medical personnel at events of this size." Sophie forced a professional smile, though her face felt like it might crack from the effort. The woman nodded and drifted away, rejoining the crowd of doctors, surgeons, and hospital administrators who'd paid $5,000 per plate to attend Stone Medical Center's annual charity gala. Sophie had volunteered for this assignment because it paid time and a half, and she desperately needed every extra dollar she could earn. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her 15-year-old sister, Riley. "Brandon, eat the last of the cereal. There's nothing for breakfast tomorrow. Can you pick something up?" Sophie closed her eyes and took a steadying breath. She'd already worked her regular paramedic shift from 6 that morning until 2 in the afternoon, then rushed to her second job, restocking shelves at a medical supply warehouse from 3 to 7, before racing here to work security medical coverage until midnight. Tomorrow she'd do it all again, because that's what you did when you became guardian to teenage twins after your grandmother died and left you as their only family. "You look like you're about to pass out." The voice was male, deep, and came from directly beside her. Sophie's eyes snapped open to find a man studying her with clinical assessment. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that had distinguished silver threading through it at the temples. His tuxedo fit him with the kind of precision that spoke of custom tailoring, and his green eyes were sharp and intelligent. She recognized him immediately from the program, Dr. Gabriel Stone, owner and founder of Stone Medical Center, one of the most prestigious hospitals on the West Coast. "I'm fine, Dr. Stone," Sophie said automatically, straightening her posture despite the way her muscles screamed in protest. "You're not fine. When did you last eat?" The question was so unexpected that Sophie answered honestly. "Lunch, around noon." "It's 10:30 at night. That's unacceptable." He gestured to the catering table behind them. "Take a plate, eat something." "I'm working, sir. It wouldn't be appropriate." "I'm the one who owns this hospital and funds this event. I'm giving you permission." His tone suggested he wasn't used to being argued with. Sophie wanted to refuse on principle. She didn't need charity from wealthy doctors who couldn't possibly understand what it meant to be hungry because you'd spent your food money on your siblings' school supplies. But her traitorous stomach chose that moment to growl audibly. Dr. Stone's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Please, you can't take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first. That's basic medicine." The kindness in his voice nearly undid her. Sophie reached for a plate with trembling hands and selected a few items, acutely aware of Dr. Stone watching her. She'd managed 3 bites of salmon when her radio crackled to life. "All medical personnel, we have a situation in the West Gallery. Guest experiencing chest pains." Sophie dropped her plate immediately and ran, her exhaustion forgotten as training took over. She pushed through the crowd to find an elderly man clutching his chest, his face gray with pain. His wife was crying, and a cluster of concerned guests had formed a circle around them. "Paramedic coming through," Sophie announced, dropping to her knees beside the man. She checked his pulse, assessed his breathing, and within seconds had determined this was likely a cardiac event. "Sir, I'm Sophie. Can you tell me where the pain is?" "Left arm? Crushing," he gasped. Sophie's partner, Marcus, arrived with their medical kit. Together they worked efficiently. Oxygen, aspirin, monitoring vitals, calling for an ambulance. She was vaguely aware of Dr. Stone directing other guests away, creating space for them to work, but her focus was entirely on her patient. "Pulse is thready, blood pressure dropping," Marcus reported. "We need to transport now," Sophie said, helping to prepare the man for transfer. The ambulance arrived within minutes, and they loaded him smoothly, but as Sophie stood to follow, the world tilted sideways. She'd pushed too hard, gone too long without rest or proper nutrition. Her body, which had been running on pure adrenaline and willpower, simply gave out. Sophie felt herself falling, and had one moment of absolute clarity. This was going to hurt when she hit the marble floor. But the impact never came. Strong arms caught her mid-fall, pulling her against a solid chest. She heard Dr. Stone's voice, firm and commanding. "I've got her. Marcus, go with your patient. I'll handle this." Sophie tried to protest, tried to say she was fine and needed to do her job,
but her tongue felt thick and uncooperative. The ballroom spun around her in a kaleidoscope of glittering light and concerned faces. "Stay with me," Dr. Stone said, and Sophie felt herself being lifted completely off her feet. He carried her as though she weighed nothing, moving through the crowd with purposeful strides. Someone clear a path, now. Sophie's head lolled against his shoulder, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her think of forests after rain. She should be mortified, being carried like a child by one of the most powerful doctors in the city, but she was too exhausted to feel anything except a strange sense of safety. They didn't go to the emergency room, which some distant part of Sophie's brain registered as odd. Instead, Dr. Stone carried her through corridors she didn't recognize, finally entering a private office that looked more like a luxury apartment than a medical facility.
The next weeks were a careful dance of secrecy and stolen moments. They kept their relationship private at the hospital, but outside work, Gabriel integrated himself into Sophie's life with surprising ease. He showed up at Brandon's basketball games and cheered louder than anyone. He helped Riley with her college application essays, offering advice without being overbearing. He cooked dinner in Sophie's small kitchen, looking completely at home despite his wealth and status. "He's good for you," Riley observed one evening after Gabriel had left. "You smile more. You seem less tired." "He makes me happy," Sophie admitted. "Then why do you look worried?" Because Sophie was worried. About the secret they were keeping, about hospital politics, about Vanessa's increasingly hostile behavior. The surgeon had noticed something was different, and her attempts to undermine Sophie had escalated. The situation came to a head when Sophie discovered Vanessa reviewing her employee file without authorization. "What are you doing?" Sophie demanded. Vanessa didn't look guilty. "Researching. Making sure everything about your hiring was above board. It would be terrible if there were irregularities, wouldn't it? If it appeared you'd received preferential treatment for inappropriate reasons." "I earned my position." "Did you? Or did you cry in front of the right man at the right time?" Vanessa's smile was poison. "I'm going to the board, Sophie. I'm going to make sure they investigate exactly how Gabriel's personal feelings influenced his professional decisions. And when they do, your employment here will end." Sophie felt sick. "Why are you doing this?" "Because Gabriel is mine. He was always meant to be mine, and I won't let some desperate little paramedic take what I spent years building." That evening, Sophie told Gabriel about Vanessa's threat. They were in his apartment, a penthouse she'd started spending nights at, leaving the twins with Gabriel's housekeeper, Maria, who treated them like their own grandchildren. "She's bluffing," Gabriel said, pulling Sophie into his arms. "She has no grounds for an investigation." "But Gabriel, what if she's right? What if the board decides I did receive preferential treatment? They could fire me, and worse, they could damage your reputation." "I don't care about my reputation." "Well, I do. You built this hospital as a legacy. I won't be the reason it's tarnished." Sophie pulled away. "Maybe we should cool things off, just until—" "No," Gabriel's voice was firm. "I've spent 5 years being cautious, being careful, not letting anyone get close because I was afraid of losing someone again. I'm not doing that anymore. Not with you." "What do you mean, losing someone again?" Gabriel was silent for a long moment. Then he led Sophie to a photo on his mantel, a beautiful woman with dark hair and a gentle smile, holding a newborn baby. "Her name was Rebecca," Gabriel said quietly. "My wife. She died 5 years ago, giving birth to our daughter, Lily." Sophie's breath caught. "Gabriel, I didn't know you had a daughter." "She lives with my parents in Portland. They take excellent care of her, and I visit every weekend." Pain flickered across his face. "After Rebecca died, I threw myself into work, built this hospital as a memorial to her, as a penance for not being able to save her. I told myself I'd never risk loving someone again, never risk that kind of loss."
So what changed? You did. Gabriel turned to face her. You walked into my life broken and exhausted, and instead of just accepting help, you fought for your independence. You challenged me. You made me remember that being alive means risking pain. And Sophie, I'd rather risk everything with you than play it safe for the rest of my life. Sophie felt tears streaming down her face. I'm scared of failing you, of losing this life we're building, of not being enough. You're more than enough. You're everything. Gabriel kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. But you need to decide, Sophie. Are you brave enough to fight for this? Because if Vanessa goes to the board, it's going to get ugly. People will judge us. They'll say terrible things. Can you handle that? Sophie thought about everything Gabriel had given her, not just the job and the apartment, but the safety to hope, the freedom to dream, the courage to love. She thought about Riley and Brandon, about the life they were building together, about the man who'd caught her when she fell and never let go. Yes, she said, I can handle it, because you're worth fighting for. Gabriel smiled and pulled her close. Then let her try. We'll face it together. But neither of them knew just how vicious the fight would become when everything falls apart. Vanessa Hart moved with surgical precision, and her attack was calculated to cause maximum damage. She didn't go to the board directly. Instead, she planted seeds of doubt, whispered to the right people, compiled evidence that painted Sophie as an opportunist and Gabriel compromised by personal feelings. The first sign of trouble came when Sophie was called to HR. The meeting was brief and humiliating. Questions about her relationship with Dr. Stone, implications that her employment had been inappropriate from the start, suggestions that she'd manipulated a vulnerable man for personal gain. We're not saying anything has been proven, the HR director said carefully, but given the allegations, we need to place you on administrative leave pending investigation. Allegations? Sophie felt the world tilting. What allegations? That Dr. Stone hired you based on personal attraction rather than professional qualifications, that you've been receiving preferential treatment, that hospital resources have been improperly used for your benefit. None of that is true. Then the investigation will clear you. Until then, please leave your badge and access card. Sophie called Gabriel immediately, but he was in surgery. She left the hospital in a daze, driving home on autopilot. When she arrived, she found Riley and Brandon watching TV, their faces lighting up when they saw her. "You're home early," Brandon said. "Want to help me with my physics homework? That stuff makes no sense." Sophie couldn't do it. Couldn't pretend everything was fine when their entire lives were about to implode again. "I was suspended from work. They're investigating my relationship with Gabriel." The twins stared at her in shock. "What does that mean?" Riley asked quietly. "It means I might lose my job, which means we might lose this apartment, the good schools, everything we've built." "Because you're dating Dr. Stone?" Brandon's voice rose with adolescent fury. "That's not fair. He makes you happy. Why does anyone care?" "Because I'm his boss, because there are rules about relationships in the workplace." Sophie sank onto the couch. "I was stupid to think this could work." Riley sat beside her, taking her hand. "You're not stupid for falling in love, Sophie. You've taken care of us for so long. You deserve to be happy too." But happiness felt impossible as the situation deteriorated. The investigation became public knowledge, and suddenly, Sophie was the subject of hospital gossip. Some staff members were supportive, but others looked at her with judgment or pity. Articles appeared in medical trade publications about conflicts of interest in hospital hiring practices, never naming names, but clearly referencing Stone Medical Center. Gabriel tried to fight back, but his hands were tied. The board insisted he recuse himself from anything involving Sophie's employment. He hired lawyers, prepared to sue for wrongful termination if necessary, but Sophie could see the strain in his face, the way this was tearing him apart. "This is killing you," Sophie said one night when he showed up at her apartment looking exhausted and defeated. "Watching your hospital, your legacy, become tabloid fodder because of me." "I don't care about the tabloids. I care about you. But you care about Stone Medical too. You built it for Rebecca, for your daughter. I won't be the reason it's destroyed." Gabriel pulled her close. "Sophie, listen to me. Stone Medical is bricks and equipment and procedures. Yes, important, but not irreplaceable. You are irreplaceable. I lost one woman I loved because I couldn't save her. I will not lose you because I'm too afraid to fight." "What if fighting means losing everything? Your hospital, your reputation, your relationship with your daughter's grandparents, Rebecca's parents, if they hear about this and think you're dishonoring her memory?" "Rebecca would have liked you." Gabriel's voice was thick with emotion. "She always said I needed someone who would challenge me, who wouldn't let me hide behind work. You're that person, Sophie." But Sophie could feel the walls closing in. The investigation revealed that Gabriel had indeed expedited her hiring, had personally approved her housing assistance, had given her opportunities not available to other staff. None of it was illegal, but all of it looked bad. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss Gabriel's leadership. "They're going to ask you to choose," Sophie said, reading the meeting agenda Gabriel had left on his desk. "The hospital or me? Then I choose